Hi. Well, first I would like to return the thanks. It's been great being here. Yesterday you've been so generous. It's a great event. We met some great people, and it's been really fun to be here. And I hope we gave back and were able to share with you some ideas and inspiration. So I was asked to just put together some. I've worked on so many things over the years, and our projects span such a wide variety. So I put together a few things. It's only part of the stuff we've been doing, but I kind of selected things that have a bit of a more documentary slant within the variety of work we've been doing. That being said, you'll see it's quite different and from one project to another. And I'll go quickly too. I don't want to spend too much time. I'd rather spend more time discussing with you guys as part of the workshop. So I'll just show some slides and comment, and then we can discuss all that after. So yes, Kngfu. We've been here. We've been in Montreal for 10 years, working on multi-platform, storytelling, interactive, whatever you want to call it, usually innovative and new forms of telling stories. But sometimes we return to the old form and the traditional form. It doesn't mean we are stuck to technology or to digital. I don't know, somebody might want to just write a film or write a novel, and it would be totally fine for us to work on something like that. So I think it's more about removing boundaries between disciplines and genres and styles. It's all about the story before the form, and the form comes with every project based on what the story needs or what helps the story or what are the constraints that come with the project. So that's kind of how I see things and how I see the world. So for those of you who've been here yesterday, we extensively talked about Life on Hold. That's one of the latest documentary projects we've done. I won't go too much in detail, but it's an interactive documentary on the Syrian refugees, mainly the lives of 10 Syrian refugees in Lebanon. You're invited to check it out online. A few years ago, we did this project called Lujda, the peephole in English. So this project with Radio-Canada was kind of an interactive murder mystery / fiction / reality / alternate reality game. Quite a mix of hybrid kind of genre, where basically it was the story started with a building owner that was murdered, and basically people online had to trace back what led to the murder, because the building was full of security cameras and all the footage from 40 security cameras was gathered, and people had to go back in time and reconstitute the story. But there was as well some linear fiction episodes where we could see the story unfold, and as well as some investigation elements, because people had to respond to the detectives, and the detectives gave people missions every week to basically either that involved going through the footage, all the raw rushes of the security cameras, and figuring out some things and answering, or actually sometimes investigating outside on the web, because all the suspects and the characters of that story had Facebook profiles, had all these footprints online that people had to go dig in. And there was as well as finally in real life events that were staged, so people could actually go and meet actors in some places in Montreal, or call some phone numbers and figure out more of the story. So it happened over 6 to 8 weeks, and eventually the final episode where everything unfolded was, the public, 6 people from the public actually participated in the final episode. Very hard to sum up this project in less than half an hour, but I'm doing my best. This is quite a different project we did with RCI, so the International Radio Canada radio, that they had a big archive of radio shows on the themes of religion and democracy in 9 different languages. RCI was broadcasting in Russian, Mandarin, Arabic, and more languages. And we built this kind of like playlist creation tool. So they put all their archives there, they tag them in a specific way, and you basically have, just by clicking a few boxes, it suggested a playlist within that content. Another project called DJ 24 Hour. That's a project linked to Doc, also for Radio Canada, that followed 6 of the biggest Montreal DJs. You probably know a lot of them. Across a typical day in a DJ's life, and the idea was to fragment a day in the life of a DJ into 6 moments of a day, and those 6 days, those 6 characters times 6 moments were basically, it was a grid of 36 pieces that made that made the storytelling in a way. Kid Koala, A-Track, some pretty amazing people we worked with, Mistress Barbara, Ghislain Poirier, among others, that we followed for more than a year. And the actual TV doc was made by Peripheria, a Montreal documentary producer that we collaborated with to put this together. I love showing this one because it's one of my earliest projects. As early days of the company, but I still find it such a, I mean, I don't know, I still find it's relevant today. It was a project I did with the NFB, French and English combined. It was basically a portrait of diversity in Canada through the eyes of more than 80 documentary filmmakers across Canada, and all those portraits kind of worked in, well, kind of created this mosaic that created a different face every time you visit the site, and that you had all these little short documentary films from across Canada to watch, some really beautiful pieces. It kind of is still online. It doesn't fully work today, 10 years after, but I think you can still go and visit and watch a lot of those films. Yeah, so it was really interesting as well to, on this project, to kind of really work with all different filmmakers and try to create a cohesive platform or cohesive meaning with all of that, and make it all work as part of one story, as although it's kind of 80 different stories in the platform. Another one is just to be outside also of the computer screen and the web screen. I added this project, which is basically we developed 12 giant tactile screen in the new planetarium in Montreal. So the planetarium was completely a new planetarium was built in Montreal a few years ago, and there was a space before you entered the dome, the actual planetarium, where you could discover the story of the universe, and there was a bunch of interactive modules, and those kind of vertical screens where you see kind of a galaxy are actually like touch interfaces that tell you in 9 chapters the story of the universe. That one, Zioté, is actually not fiction, complete fiction, but it's actually a living 12 minutes, actually, yeah, 8 minutes from 12 different perspectives. So it's the idea was that it's a restaurant. There's 12 tables, conversations happening in 12 places in that restaurant, and they're all simultaneous. And you can actually choose which conversations you look at, and actually switch, go back in time and watch a different conversation or a different angle of the story, kind of in a way. Just kind of an interesting. Fun that we had with the idea of linear, non-linear storytelling and how to tell a story from different angles and different sides, and it's a French. The videos are all in French, so you might not be able to fully watch it, but in the Francophone community, including Europe, this project won tons of awards. So. I still think it is really relevant in how storytelling can be completely exploded and rethought. That's an early project also we did with NFB. It was actually having fun with their archives, and it was a interactive music video in a way for this band, the Montreal band called Malajube. And well, the idea was that they had the song of Malajube is on mental illness. It's a really deep song, and the idea was to use the NFB archives to build a music video dynamically, so it doesn't have a static structure. The site asks you to enter a word every now and then with a specific cue, and according to the word you enter, it takes you or it pulls stuff from the NFB archives to build a music video. Almost, yeah, the before last. We did this special project with also CBC Radio Canada. Was also cross CBC Radio Canada cross-sectional project in 2011. So it was to kind of mark 10 years passing after 9/11 by telling the story of 10 Muslims living in Canada 10 years after, and kind of comparing how 9/11 changed their life in Canada in the previous 10 years. And actually Ralph was a big part of this project as well. And so we kind of also created a symmetrical kind of view of, okay, 10 years before was 9/11, how did that change their life, and where do they think it will be in 10 years after, so in 2021, and created this kind of gallery of messages and filters of emotions. We kind of developed a kind of a little semantic engine where people could define the relationship between Canada and Islam, choosing 3 different adjectives, and those adjectives formed kind of a mosaic. Anyway, hard to go also into detail in such a short time. This is a project that is not yet deployed, but it's very relevant because it's kind of also about telling a documentary, it's documentary storytelling through mobility and only mobility. So we are scattering tons of content in Montreal, like geolocated content that you can only awaken by by walking the territory actually. And all these little snippets that are being planted in the territory actually come together and create a story. As you're walking or moving in the cities of Montreal. I think that's enough, and it's quite dense. Maybe when we talk later, I can probably pull some other things out of my hat and talk about different things. I'll let Ralph also talk about a few things.
All right, I'm going to go back a little bit further. So the period of time 2000-2004, where it was really fun to work in interactive, and because there was still no high-speed internet, and everything was there to grab and create. The interesting thing is that when we thought that digital would last forever, and it turned out to be the most ephemeral way of telling stories, it seems. So all of these projects, and they were massive projects sometimes, and they changed a lot of things in the interactive world, have all disappeared. So I have some screen grabs from them. It's incredible to think that. Saved by the Bells is one of the first examples of yesterday somebody was talking about website for a film, of recreating and translating the language of a film into an interactive language rather than making a marketing website for the film itself. And the funny thing is that that's in 2001, 2002, is that maybe 500, 600,000 people went on the site and played with it and got the content from it, and around 10,000 saw the film. So we understood very early on that the dissemination on the internet is going to be much more efficient than the structure of distribution that we had before. The interesting thing on this site is that it was an algorithmical brain machine that did everything that Jonathan was talking about with redid with We Feel Fine on a much broader scale, because the data was there and he could grab it from the internet. Saved by the Bells did it only with the users. So the site would change moods, and it would change color, and it would change music according to the moods of the users. I have very few slides to illustrate that. You had to go in saying, I feel happy, I feel angry, I feel all the series of feelings that we had. There's a little meter that shifts. You see it somewhere there next to the title. The idea of it was to have a site that would shift moods and vibes and emotional output with the collectivity, the feelings of the collectivity. So it was a very interesting exercise in data, minimal data analysis. The next site I want to talk about really quickly again is Made in Montreal, which was one of the biggest endeavors we've made, it was an attempt to put the whole parts of the city that we liked online and to create an engine behind it that would use the verb je veux and I want. So I want to eat meat, let's say, and dance salsa. So it would create for you an itinerary based on your needs that you would follow through the city with an extensive amount of rich media, of videos and photos. And this is 2003, 2004. So it was way, way before YouTube and Google, and it was before the social media aggregated the images of things. So you couldn't find images of restaurants inside or shops or, you know. So we did that, and it was a huge, huge project. We even, see there, we kind of invented, today it seems so rebarbative and primitive, but the weather thing, it's a small thing, but it's still, I'm very proud of it because we kind of invented the visual of the weather. So we had videos that loaded according to what the weather was doing. So it was raining, we had a small video that loaded. And today it's so ubiquitous, but at the time it was unique. I really don't want to take more time. I don't even know what that is. That's love letters. I could show you a video, 4 minutes, if you're interested in, which sums up Love Letters to the Future. That was a huge project for Greenpeace that had an arc behind it, an alternate reality game that I made with Amit here and Thomas Wallner from Xenophile for Greenpeace. It's a good example of how interactive can mesh together different emotional input to the user, and you can I don't know what I'm saying, so I'll show you the video. I don't know if you want to watch it, I can show it to you and then end the talk there, because Life on Hold, you know it. And okay, so let's show. I don't know where the video is. You just clicked on it.
It seemed to me, in the change of weather that we've been having, the weather patterns, the flooding, hurricanes, all these things, there wasn't enough of a connection being made in mainstream media.
How could we willingly know that we were going into extinction and let it happen?
There's no there with you somewhere. Some of your grandchildren are here with me now. Maybe I even know them. And this is what you've left them. You see? This is my world. This is how I live. I think they found me. I hope you get this. And remember, it's not too late.
Maya's plea to save the world was touched by hundreds of ears. Social media networks, game communities, environment forums, green blogs, and traditional media followed and documented the interactive experience. In a public event during the climate change conference in Copenhagen, Maya's message was projected on a giant screen just as the time capsule was sealed for the next 100 years. Love Letters to the Future was a global multi-platform experience and a stage for an open dialogue about the future of our planet. By introducing the viewers to an alternative reality and immersing them in a participatory experience, Love Letters to the Future fostered global collaboration between diverse communities across languages and cultures.
So we can talk about this and all the rest